Grade 12 Economics. Please welcome Mr. Mhlo. Grade 12 Economics. Please welcome Mr. Mhlo. I'm here today with you to take you on microeconomics. Under microeconomics topic, we are doing monopolistic competition under the imperfect market structure. So please join me. Let's see what we have for you here. So the following are the lesson objectives that will be achieved during the course of this lesson. So this lesson will assist you to understand the monopolistic behavior. We will break down how is the monopolistic behavior as compared to other market structures. Also, the monopolistic market structure will be explained in detail, even essays will be written. Monopolistic demand curve will be explained in comparison with other demand curves, especially with the one for the monopoly. Comparison of market structures will be discussed in depth. Example of two essays will be explained again to you and will be indicated as for how does the question appear in a form of layout, and then how can you respond if given that kind of a question where you have to compare market structures. It is believed that you already know the following, since it has been covered here. The perfect market conditions and the market structure is well known. Monopoly conditions, oligopoly market conditions and structure is well known. So now we are starting the lesson, the monopolistic competition. If we talk about the monopolistic competition of the market, remember it's one of those markets under the imperfect market. So this is the market structure at which there are many buyers and sellers, for which sellers have a control or influence over the price. And the other thing that is slightly different is that these firms of business under the monopolistic are producing and supplying differentiated products. So we will be talking about monopolistic competition formation. How is it formed? Which is known as a hybrid structure because it contains some features or characteristics of the perfect market and those of the monopoly. And then characteristics of the monopolistic competition will be explained. Equilibrium positions for the monopolistic competition will be explained, as well as the comparison of market structures will be dealt with in detail. So the monopolistic competition is the imperfect market structure that exists when there are many sellers that produce similar but slightly differentiated products. So these firms under monopolistic are producing similar but slightly differentiated product, meaning they are not really the same, they are differentiated. A differentiated product will be explained in detail during the course of this lesson. Notably, monopolistic competition have a hybrid structure because it contains some characteristics of perfect markets and those of the monopoly. That's why we say it is having a hybrid structure. That one is very important because we can come across the question in examination asking you, explain the structure for the monopolistic competition. It is hybrid because it contains some characteristics for the monopoly and some of the perfect market. Differentiated products produced in this market structure tighten the competition between firms because the product, they easily replace each other, so they can be substituted for one another. These goods that are differentiated, remember, they satisfy the same utility. So they can replace each other. If one firm is selling one product at the higher price, consumers are free to go to another firm or another supplier and demand the product that is selling at the lower cost. Therefore, they become substitutes for each other. So it makes the competition to be even more because these goods can replace each other as much as they are differentiated. Slightly, they tend to differ, but they look the same as they satisfy the similar or same utility. We continue the monopolistic competition. So unlike other imperfect market structures, such as monopoly and oligopoly, monopolistic competition has free market entry. Under monopolistic, there are no barriers to entry. New firms are free to enter the market while existing firms are free to leave the market. So that alone makes it differ from other imperfect market structures. So there are no natural or artificial barriers to entry that can prohibit the entry of new business or competitors. New firms are free to enter the market and existing firms are free to leave the market after enjoying their profits. Each firm keeps a small portion of the market share. market domination by certain firms is highly impossible because of high competition. So in this kind of the market or market structure, there is a high competition because entry is free or market entry is free. So each firm in there can be able to possess or to keep the small portion of the market share because there is a high competition that is existing within this kind of the market. Monopolistic firms invest the most in product development, the product proliferation, the marketing in order to maintain their profits. They ensure that they develop their product in the sense that they appear more modernized and more slightly unique to those of the competitors. It can be a taste, appearance, etc. So they invest the most in product development. They improve their product. They ensure that the single product can have a variety of products that can be used or that can be sold to different consumers. Also, they do marketing the most. They advertise to ensure that they capture the attention of consumers in order for them to keep or maintain their profits high. So basic examples of industries that operate within the monopolistic competition are, we talk about the fast food industry, hairdressers industry, sportswear products, as well as clothing and apparel industry. These are the typical examples of industries that operate within the monopolistic competition. Remember, there are so many, but we couldn't list the whole examples. But these ones are the slight examples that we can refer to if we talk about industries that operate within the monopolistic competition. So the following are the basic characteristics of monopolistic competition. How do we see the firm that operate under the monopolistic? So details will be provided on each characteristic. So firstly, we are listing there are many sellers. Normally, we say there are many buyers and sellers that exist within the market, meaning there is no competition. I mean, there is high competition that is existing here because there are many sellers. So the competition is too high because new firms can enter the market. So the market is too accessible to new firms, which increases the competition. Products are differentiated. So these goods, they can look similar, but they are differentiated. They have a slight difference. Most of them can replace each other as they satisfy the same utility. There is a freedom of entry and exit. New firms are free to enter the market, and existing firms are free to leave the market. So that means there are no barriers to enter that exist to block the entry of new competitors. The natural barriers to entry and artificial barriers to entry are not existing in this kind of the market. Firms have a control over the price. So firms here are regarded as price setters. They have a considerable control over the price. They can influence the price. They don't mostly depend on market forces like in the perfect market. There is an imperfect information. Each firm keeps its own information confidential to competitors. Because if competitors can get or access information for this particular firm, it can lose its market share, it can lose everything because remember, these firms are competing. So giving your information to your competitor will mean your competitor can use your information against you in order to win your consumers. The demand curve for this firm, this market structure is downward sloping but relatively elastic. There is a downward sloping demand curve like in other imperfect market structures. However, this one is relatively elastic. Why? The demand curve is relatively elastic because in this kind of the market, consumers are having choices. If one firm is selling at the higher price, while other firms are selling the same or differentiated product at the lower price, that will lead to consumers buying from the one selling at the lower price. Therefore, consumers here appear to be very sensitive to the change in price. If ever one is selling at the higher cost, they opt to demand from the one who is selling at the lower cost. Therefore, the demand curve becomes relatively elastic. Monopolistic firms can make supernormal profit in the short run or a normal profit in the long run. They can also make economic loss in the short run. Those conditions will be explained on how will be supernormal profit or economic profit can be made by the firm based on cost and revenues. But it is believed that in the short run, the firm can make supernormal profit or economic profit, and in the long run, the firm can make what we call a normal profit. There is no collusion. Firms do not collude in here. There is no interdependency like in the oligopoly. So, under the monopolistic competition, number of sellers, we say there are many sellers that exist in this kind of the market. There are so many competitors. There's high competition in here, caused by free entry, because businesses are free to enter the market as much as they want. So there are many sellers from which consumers can choose. As a consumer, you can choose from any seller that is supplying the product in the market, because these goods can replace each other. They satisfy the same utility. So there are many sellers and there's a high competition that is existing in here. Unlike in other market structures, competition is too high in the monopolistic. There are so many firms that can enter the market to compete with existing firms. This provides consumers with variety of choices. So this leads to the consumers having variety of choices to choose from because of the competition. So products can easily replace each other as they satisfy the same utility. I've been saying that. So these goods supplied under monopolistic can simply replace each other easily because they satisfy the similar utility, meaning they are the substitutes for each other. Self-improvement for each firm is a profitable decision in order to maintain high profits. So each firm invests on developing itself. It is very important for the firm to mind its own businesses by doing what? By developing its own product so that it can keep its consumers, maintain the market share, and keep its profits high. If firm cannot improve while other firms are improving, it will be losing its market share to rival firms or competitors. Nature of products produced under the monopolistic, we said they are differentiated. They look similar, but they are differentiated. So products are differentiated. Sellers sell differing products as a strategy to gain competitive edge over competitors. These goods or products can look the same, however, they are differentiated because at times, if ever is something to eat, the taste is not the same. It can be the same, maybe chicken sold in different of these restaurants. However, the taste might be different. So that becomes a differentiated product. Dimensions of differentiated products include imaginary, not identical, and packaging. So these goods are not identical. They look similar, but they're not identical because they differ in some specifications. And then some other firms might have the very close or similar goods, but packaging is totally different from each other. So those goods become differentiated. As much as product looks similar, but they are not identical, the similarity lies on the fact that they satisfy the same utility. So they become similar, or we say they look similar or they are similar because they can replace each other. They satisfy the same utility. If the consumer is having one product, the consumer cannot be having another product at the same time or utilizing the same another product at the same time because they can be used in the place of another. So they are alternatives actually. So these goods look similar, however, they are really not similar. They are differentiated. The thing is they satisfy the same utility. The difference on product may be because of consumer view that one brand is better than another brand. So consumers have their own decisions to make in there where they compare. Goods can appear the same, however, the brand differs. So consumers can make decisions based on they think one is in the good quality and one is in the poor quality. However, these goods look the same, they satisfy the same utility, but they are slightly differentiated and not identical. And then market entry and exit. Remember, we said new firms are free to enter the market while existing firms are free to leave the market. Meaning, in this market, there are no barriers to entry. Barriers to entry do not exist here. If we talk of barriers to entry, we talk about those restrictions that will prohibit or block the entry of new businesses into the market. They don't exist. Firms are free to enter the market if they want to enter and enjoy profits. Remember, supernormal profits or economic profits that are enjoyed by existing firms normally attract the entry of new firms into the market. Therefore, that leads to firms in the long run not making a profit. New firms are free to enter the market, while existing firms are free to leave or exit the market because the entry is easily accessible to all competitors. The absence of barriers to entry make the market freely accessible to new competitors. Since there are no barriers to entry that can be natural or artificial, then that means firms are very free to enter, while others are free to leave the market after they've enjoyed their profits. New firms are led by profits made by existing firms. Like I've said before, if ever existing firms are enjoying profit or making profits now, that will be attracting new firms to enter the market and compete, because profit is what each business is willing to achieve in the market. So as much as there is more profit in the industry made by a particular firm, other firms are attracted to enter the market and compete. The increase in number of firms in the market means the increase in market output and brands. If ever there are so many firms that are entering the market to compete, that will lead to so much output. Output will be increasing, and different brands will also be increasing, because these firms under monopolistic, as they enter with their very own brands in order to compete with the competitors. They don't enter to sell the same brand. Brands are different. Remember, the main thing they use is to brand their product different so that their product can appear unique to those of the competitors. So brands will always increase if number of competitors increase in the market. Also, the size of output or output size will also increase if ever there are so many firms that are existing within the market. And then control over the price. We say here, monopolistic firms have a considerable control over the price. They can influence the price. In other words, we regard them as price setters. Monopolistic firms have a control over the price, but not to the same extent as monopoly and oligopoly. So they have a control over the price, but not at the same level as in the oligopoly and the monopoly. Remember, in the monopolistic competition, there is a high competition. So as much as firm can control or influence the price, it cannot temper the price with the price the most as compared to the monopoly, because if the firm simply increase the price, consumers are having more alternating product to choose from other competitors. Therefore, they don't have that huge impact or control over the price, but they do influence the price. They use market forces, the demand especially, to measure how much can they charge on the particular product in the market. But they do have an influence over the price. They don't depend the most on market forces, demand and supply. Unlike in the monopoly is the only firm. It can tamper with the price anyhow. So in that case, even consumers are not sensitive to the change in price. But in this monopolistic competition, the change in price results to consumers quickly reacting to that change in price. If ever the price is increasing, they simply twist and demand goods that are still cheap in another supplier, because these goods are satisfying the same utility. That's why we say consumers tend to be very sensitive to the increase in the price. Product differentiation deprives the competitors from having a full control over the price. Remember, products are differentiated, they are not the same. So that simply prohibits competitors to have a full control over the price. As much as products are differentiated, but they satisfy the same utility, that will lead to, if ever one firm simply have a full control over the price or increase the price, that will lead to consumers rushing to competitors and demand the product if it's still selling at the lower cost as compared to this other firm. As products are close substitutes for each other, any reduction in price will attract customers from rival firms. Since these goods can replace each other very easy, that means if one firm decreases the price, consumers will always be attracted to flow to that competitor that is selling at the lower cost, because their goods are satisfying the same utility. And if one firm increases the price, consumers are very quick to react on demanding less of that particular product by demanding more on the alternating product from other firms that is still selling at the lower cost. A change in price will cause a huge change in quantity demanded. If ever there is an increase in price, consumers will quickly react because they are very sensitive. Remember, there are so many alternative products here to choose from, so they will buy from other competitors that are still selling at the lower cost if ever the price is increasing. If the price is decreasing, the firm will attract the attention of other consumers from other competitors in the market. Then it will be gaining more consumers and more profits, even market share. So simply the change in price have a huge impact on the change in quantity demanded under the monopolistic competition. This implies a relatively elastic downward sloping demand curve. So this leads to the demand curve being relatively elastic. So with marginal revenue, that will always be less than the price. So in this case, The demand curve for the monopolistic will always be downward sloping like all other imperfect market structures. However, the difference is that this demand curve is relatively elastic. This elastic demand curve will be explained when we talk about the demand curve. However, for now, I can simply tell you that this demand curve is relatively flat because consumers are having alternative product to choose from. If one firm decides to increase the price, consumers are free to buy from other competitors within the market. So that creates huge sensitiveness to consumers if ever there's a change in price. Market information. We have said before that the market information for the firms under monopolistic competition or market is imperfect or incomplete. Firms do not provide their information to their competitors because they might use that information against them to win over their consumers. There is an incomplete information available for buyers and amongst sellers. So in this kind of the market structure, the information is not completely free or is not simply accessible or perfect or complete, but the information is incomplete because firms or sellers are using that as a confidential information to win or to win over competitors. They use their secret receipts and secret strategies in order to win the competition within the market. So they ensure that their information remains confidential about the market condition. Each seller withholds its information to obtain competitive edge over competitors. So each seller will always keep its own information safe from flowing to competitors in order to ensure that they have a greater competitive edge over their rival firms or competitors. That is the main weapon they use to ensure that they become unique to other suppliers in the same market. Information about the brand, strategic plans, and ingredients is confidential for each competitor. Each competitor under the monopolistic competition keep that information confidential because if this information can be taken away to the competitors, they can use this information. So the branding, if ever they want to develop or improve their brand to a certain level, they cannot display their information or give to the competitors because competitors might simply use that information to win over the competition. And then strategic plans that can be used by the firm are also kept as a secret in order to ensure that competitors are not getting access to these strategies or plans in order for the firm to continue winning over its consumers and also ensuring consumer loyalty within the market. Ingredients, especially in fast food industry, they are kept very, very safe. They don't give it away because if they give it away, they might lose their market to other firms that might be coming in. So it is very important they keep their ingredients as secrets and confidential to ensure that competitors do not simply access that information in order to compete with them. So the main thing here is that the information under monopolistic competition is not free, is not perfect, is incomplete. It's hidden. Firms, for them, it's a greater incentive to hide information because that information is profitable. They ensure that they protect their profitable information from their rival firms so that they will keep having the unique brand within the market. Releasing confidential information might result to competitors adopting similar strategies. So firms cannot simply release this information because they use it in order to obtain these consumers and the market share and also to maintain their profits because these are strategies that are very much profitable for the market. The demand curve. The monopolistic demand curve is downward sloping like in all other imperfect market structures. But the main difference here is that the monopolistic demand curve is downward sloping but relatively elastic. It slopes downward from the top left to the bottom right. So monopolistic competition faces relatively elastic demand curve that illustrates sensitivity of consumers to the change in price. If ever there is a change in price, consumers are very quick to react on the quantity demanded. They demand either more or less depending on the price. If the price is increasing, consumers will always demand less from that particular firm and demand more from other firms that are still selling at the lower cost. That's simply to the demand curve being very much relatively elastic because consumers are very sensitive to the price change. Consumers' reaction is much quicker than in monopoly because of high market competition. So under monopolistic competition, it's unlike in the monopoly. If ever there is a change in price, consumers are very quick to react, uh, either by buying more from the firm or by buying less to demand more from other firms that are still selling at the lower cost. But the main thing here is that under monopolistic competition, consumers are very quick to react to the change in price based on the quantity demanded. Unlike in the monopoly, even if the price is increasing, consumers will keep on demanding the product because if they don't demand from this particular firm, they will be going without the product. In the monopolistic, there's a high competition, so consumers are always very quick to react to the change in price. Especially if the price is increasing, consumers are quick to demand from alternating firm. If the price is decreasing, they are also quick to demand more from the firm that is selling at the lower cost because these goods are substitutes for one another. They can replace each other. The increase in price by one commodity results to the huge decrease in quantity demanded since consumers have variety of suppliers to buy from. So if one firm increase the price, consumers are very quick to react on the quantity demanded. They demand less and demand more from other firms that are selling at the lower cost. That's why we have this downward sloping demand curve. So this is our demand curve. Our vertical axis indicate the price, our horizontal indicate the quantity. And then here you see our demand curve sloping down from the top left to the bottom right. It is our demand curve, then you say demand equals to average revenue. And then in this case, our original price, we can say is at this point, which is which goes with equilibrium, the quantity which is Q. And then at P, the firm can supply at Q, which is more quantity demanded. But if ever the firm decides to increase the price from P to P1, that will lead to consumers being very sensitive to the change in price because they will demand absolutely less goods in this kind of the market. Look, from Q to Q1, there's a huge distance in there. As there's a huge distance, it simply indicates that consumers are very sensitive to the increase in price here. Consumers are demanding less goods if ever the price is increasing because there's a high competition. They have a power to demand goods from other suppliers that are supplying this slightly similar products that are differentiated, which are satisfying the same utility within the market. So, in explanation, demand curve equals to average revenues along the demand curve. So here, demand curve equals to AR as usual. At P1, consumers demand at P, consumers demand at Q, like I said. At P, which is P, consumers demanding at Q. And then as the price increased to P1, we can see the price going up to P1. What happens? Quantity demanded decreased to Q1. The quantity demanded increased from Q to Q1. You come across the huge difference in the on the quantity demanded. The demand curve become relatively elastic. That simply means consumers are sensitive to the change in price. Then consumers are very quick to react. If ever the price is increasing, they demand even less of this particular product because they have alternating product that they can demand from the competitors in the same market. So the demand curve becomes so flat or relatively elastic. And then the collusion. Under the monopolistic competition, there is no collusion. Firms do not collude, do not meet to fix the price. They act independently from competitors. Collusion does not occur in this market structure as there are too many suppliers. So firms do not collude. They don't get together and do price fixing and production techniques. Price fixing is generally not found in this market structure. Firms that are committing under monopolistic commission do not do what we call the price fixing. Collusion is totally impossible and irrelevant with this market structure. So they don't collude, like I've said, to determine the size of output for the market. Each firm is always acting independently because they ensure that goods that are sold are differentiated. And then profit maximization. The monopolistic firm also maximizes profit at the point where marginal revenue equals to the marginal cost. So it maximizes profits at the point where marginal revenue, which is MR, intersect marginal cost, which is MC. So still the same way where MR equals to MC. The firm maximizes its profit in there. The point where MR equals to MC is known as the profit maximization point in all other markets. So like we discussed this in the perfect, it was the same point. In under imperfect monopoly, the same point, oligopoly, the same point. Also under the monopolistic, we still maximize the profit where MR intersect MC. And then the market efficiency. Is the efficiency achievable in this market? In this case, we talk about allocative efficiency and productive or technical efficiency. A monopolistical competitive firm is non-allocatively efficient because it does not produce where P equals to MC. It does not produce at this point where price equals to marginal cost, but instead it produces where P is more than MC. Firms always produce at the point where prices are greater than the marginal cost. Thus, a monopolistical competitive firm will tend to produce a lower quantity at the higher cost and to charge a higher price than in the perfect competitive firm. So firms under the monopolistic will always produce lower output in order to charge higher prices, unlike in the perfect market. Productive or technical efficiency is not achieved because firms produce at the output that is less than the output where AC is at the lowest. So the firm here cannot achieve what we call the productive or technical efficiency. So we come across productive or technical inefficiency under the monopolistic competition. And then let's talk about the non-price competition strategies. Remember, under the monopolistic firm, market structure, firms do not always compete over the price because their products are differentiated. They mainly produce using the non-price competition strategies that are very important for them in order to maintain their consumers and to earn more consumers in order to achieve higher profits. Non-price competition is a marketing strategy in which one firm tries to distinguish its product or service from competing products on the basis of attribute like design and workmanship. So these are the strategies used by firms to ensure that their products are well pushed in the market, their products are well known in the market, and their products are well consumed in the market. They try to use the non-price competition strategies in order to get more consumers and obtain more market share and also maintain their high profits within the market. It is a form of competition that requires firms to focus on product differentiation instead of pricing strategies amongst competitors. They ensure that their products are differentiated to the sense that they appear unique to those of the competitors. So they deal with the most product differentiation and product development. Also, branding is one of those very important aspects of the non-price competition strategies. They involve promotional expenditure such as advertising. Firms under the monopolistic do advertise to ensure that they capture the attention of consumers the most. The selling stuff. And then they also, the location convenience to ensure that also the location is very much convenient for their target market or consumers in order for them to access the product or the market. Sales promotion. They ensure that they put sales promotion in order to attract the attention of the consumers. And then coupons and then special orders are also in there, or we talk of free gifts that are also given to consumers so that they can be attracted to come and consume in this particular firm. Marketing research, they do develop market research to ensure that they always updated and they are always modernized. New product development, they ensure that they develop their product to be more unique to those of the competitors. And brand management costs, they ensure that they invest the most on branding so that their goods can be unique, because the brand is very important under the monopolistic. It makes the product to appear more unique and unfamiliar to those of the competitors. So here is the list of all, or the list of some of the non-price competition strategies that can be used by firms under the monopolistic competition. Firms do advertising the most. They advertise the product to give them the good publicity, to ensure that their products are well known in the society, to ensure that consumers are fully informed about these goods that are available and selling at the particular price. They ensure that their products are very much differentiated to those of the competitors. They invest in that so that their goods can appear more unique to those of the competitors. They invest the most in brand. They brand their product because the brand is the one that makes the product to be more unique to those of the competitors. So they ensure that their brands are good on the eyes of consumers. They can attract the attention of the consumers. And then they also invest the most in packaging. They make their packaging to be more smart. They make their packaging to appear more feasible and more controllable or easy to handle by consumers. They also ensure that they have their very own unique information that is not the same as that of competitors. So they hide or withhold their information to use it in order to maintain the market share and also in order to compete with other businesses within the market. They offer services. So these services that are offered here, they can be in the good quality. So some ensure that they offer good quality services to consumers so that consumers can call again, so that consumers can be loyal to these firms. They can call again, they can come back and demand goods that are supplied by this particular firm. They offer quality or good services. Doing business over the internet. They allow those consumers that are not willing to travel by doing the business over the internet. So that make it easy for consumers to buy goods over the internet without having to travel to the market and buy goods and services. And then also they do door-to-door delivery, especially under fast food industry. We have seen that they are delivering at home. If ever you order anywhere you are, they will be able to deliver whatever that you have ordered, so that wherever you are, you need their product, you can access it. As much as the market is very close, they can deliver to you. These are the strategies that are mainly used by monopolistic firms in order to attract the attention of consumers or customers to keep on buying the product. They use these strategies to easily compete with their competitors in the market. So almost all of them, they are using the same strategies, but it depends on how each firm is using these strategies in order to win over other competitors within the market. So these are some of basic non-price competition strategies that are outlined in the examination guideline to be well discussed. We talk about the advertising. Advertising is the marketing strategy used by business to create an image that is persuasive to consumers. So whenever businesses are advertising, they persuade consumers to demand the product, to need the product. They convert need into wants through advertising. When firms are advertising, they attract or capture the attention of consumers to demand these goods that are supplied by these firms. So this is the very marketing strategy that is used by firms to capture the attention of consumers to come and demand or buy the product. So mainly the advertising is used to persuade or to influence consumers to see the product as an important product for themselves, then they can demand the product. It is an important strategy because it keeps consumers aware of the product availability until they create a desire to buy it. So whenever the product is well advertised or it keep on appearing on either on television, newspapers, posters or radio, that simply means consumers will end up being captured through the product advertisement and they will end up enjoying the advert, which will lead to the consumers demanding the product from the market. So advertising simply keep on budging in order for consumers to be attracted to come and demand the product from the market. So it makes the consumers to create a desire for the product so that they can buy it. Information can be provided by the firm about the product or business itself through media such as television, radio, internet, or magazines. So this advertising can be done through these platforms. It can be a television advert where we can see the advert itself and the product being advertised. Can be radio where we can hear them praising the importance of the product. And then internet. That's where you go into the internet, then the advert back in. That's when you are able to observe, to see there is this product which is costing so much in this particular market. Magazines are also used for advert. There are so many sources or platforms of advertising that are used by businesses to keep their product well known in the market or to keep their product in the public eye. The purpose of advertising is to increase sales and profits. So the main aim is to ensure that they increase sales and profits. As they ensure that consumers are attracted, that will lead to the consumers buying the product, which will increase sales for this particular firm that is advertising. So advertising is a very important weapon or strategy used by firms as a non-price commission strategy in order to do what? In order to capture the attention of consumers, in order to persuade consumers to demand their goods or to see their goods as important within the economy. So this is one of those important non-price competition strategies. Advertising can be used to differentiate the firm's product and also to gain market share, mainly to gain consumers. To gain more consumers, the firms need to advertise so that consumers will be aware of that particular new product that has been developed. Also, the pricing is also displayed in there so that consumers can go there with that particular necessary information for themselves to demand the product. And then the other one is branding. Firms ensure that they brand their products to appear more unique from those of the competitors. Branding is the marketing tool that the firm can use to create a certain perception in the minds of consumers of product and also the company. Whenever the product is given the brand, automatically in the mind of the consumer, the product is not the same as those of the competitors. Even if it's very much related, it's now different because of the brand, because it is called with that particular brand. So branding is very important under the monopolistic because it simply makes these goods to appear more differentiated or more unique from those of the competitors. So the brand is used by consumers to make their goods appear unique and superior to those of the competitors. Branding plays a very important role in the monopolistic competition because it makes the product appear more unique from those of the competitors. Like I said that once the product is given the brand or the brand name, automatically it's simply different from those of the competitors, even though they can satisfy the same utility and replace each other. Every producer will try to build the brand loyalty with their customers or consumers so that their customers will choose their brand over those of the competitors. So firms are responsible to choose brands for their goods so that their consumers will be able to notice and be able to set aside their goods from those of the competitors. Some consumers simply choose the product because of the brand, so that build the brand loyalty on consumers. They rely on that particular brand to say, I prefer this brand because it's too good for me. So branding is a very much important aspect that can be used as a part of the non-price competition strategy under the monopolistic. The product differentiation. So firms ensure that their products are differentiated. So product differentiation is the process used by business to distinguish a product or service from other similar ones available in the market. So they ensure that their products are very much differentiated as compared to those of the competitors in the market. In markets where competition is too high with product similarity, differentiation is a critical strategy for a product to survive. So for goods to survive in the market, differentiation of the product is very important for the product to survive in the market so that consumers can treat these goods in the market as different. It is very important for each seller to ensure that his or her goods are differentiated from those of the rival firms or competitors. There is a high elasticity of product due to similarity in the market. There are high chances also of losing the market dominance. Product differentiation then becomes a tool to make the product slightly unique from those of the competitors. So like I've said before, the differentiation of the product becomes a greater tool to make goods appear more unique from those of the competitors. If goods are not made to be different, consumers will confuse goods to those of the competitors and the firm might lose its customers to to the rival firms or competitors. It's very important that firms ensure that their goods are differentiated from those of competitors for them to obtain their consumers. So those were the non-price competition strategies that can be used by monopolistic firms in order to ensure that they can compete with the competitors within the market. We know that practically some firms can deliver. They can do door-to-door delivery. You can place an order staying at home and then they can deliver that particular product at home to you. Also, we are able to purchase goods online on the internet. That alone make it easy for consumers to access the market without having to go into the market directly. So those are known as the non-price competing strategies used by firms in order to easily compete within the market. Some are using packaging. Packaging is slightly different from different markets as much as they are selling those differentiated products. So some are having smart packaging, some are having the normal packaging that is not smart. So consumers feel very, very good and honored if they are holding on the smart packaging of a particular product. So packaging is one of those important aspects of competing within the market. Now, we will be approaching monopolistic short-run equilibrium position. So a monopolistic firm can earn supernormal profit or economic loss in the short run. Remember, the short run is a period of time that is too short. At least one input is fixed. So, on the short run, the firm under the monopolistic can earn economic profit, and then under which condition can we earn it? That will be explained. All right. So, under monopolistic competition, firms, like I've said, they earn economic profit or supernormal profit in the short run. So the condition is explained. The firm will make a profit or economic profit if average revenues are greater than average cost of doing the business or incurred in the business, or total revenues are greater than total cost of doing the business. Then the firm in there will be making what we call economic profit. It can also make economic loss in the short run. So in the short run, economic loss can appear if or can prevail if the firm's revenues or average revenues are lower than the firm's average cost, or the firm's total cost are greater than what we call total revenues earned in the business. Then the firm in there will be making what we call economic loss. Supernormal profit occurs within the firm's, within the firm average revenues exceed average cost, like I've said before, or total revenues exceed the total cost. Then the firm will be enjoying the supernormal profit. Graphically, the average cost curve will be turning above the average revenue curve. Then in that case, the firm will be making what we call economic profit. So if average costs are turning below, if AC turns below AR, the firm will be making a supernormal profit as for the graph. And then economic loss prevail if average cost exceed average revenues, or total cost exceed total revenues. As for the graph, average cost will be turning slightly above the average revenue curve. So that is the situation. Average cost curve turns above average revenues curve. That will be explained graphically when we deal with the graph. So monopolistic commission profit. So this is the graph that indicates a supernormal profit for the firm under the monopolistic. Let's see what happens here. Normally we have our marginal cost, and then we have our average cost or demand curve being downward sloping but relatively elastic. And then we have our marginal revenue, which always lie below our average revenue curve. And then at the point where marginal cost intersect the marginal revenue, we have the equilibrium. We call this one the profit maximization point. And then but this is our quantity, which is known as the profit maximization output. And then this 100 indicates our revenues, because as you see this line straight up there, it touches our revenues. So at this point, we'll be able to determine our revenues. So our revenues are equals to 100. So we just have to see how much is the value of our cost. That is our average cost. Where does it turn? It simply turns below average revenue. You can see average revenue is up there and average cost is just down there. So that means average costs are equals to 45 and average revenue are equals to 100. Then the firm in this case is making supernormal profit. You can see that economic profit is indicated in the shaded area, showing that revenues are more than the cost incurred in the business. So we call this 45 the profit maximization price. And then that is our selling price, which is 100 up there. The firm is making economic profit. And then the graph will be explained. The same graph comes back. So economic profit is where total revenue exceed the total cost. If TC TR is greater than TC, the firm will be enjoying what we call a supernormal profit. At point E, this is the point. MR equals to MC. Marginal revenue and marginal cost are both equal here. So we call this the profit maximization point. And then shaded area indicate economic profit. We can see the shaded area in there. It is written economic profit because revenues are more and costs are lower. And then average revenues exceed the average cost. Average revenues are equals to 100. There is 100. And average cost are equals to 45. Are equals to 45. So in this case, our costs are lower than our revenues. And then average cost curve turn just below the average revenue. We can see AC turning just below. AR is up there and AC is turning down there. So that simply means average revenue curve is turning, average cost curve is turning below average revenue curve. As a result, the firm is making a supernormal profit or economic profit. So how do we calculate the profit? We say profit equals to AR minus AC times quantity. Let's see the value of AR. It is 100. What is the value of AC? It's 45. And then what is the value of quantity? The quantity is 60, which is the output. So times 60. And that will be giving us 3,300. It's a positive amount which indicates the supernormal profit. Or the other way around, to calculate the profit, we can do this. We can say total revenue minus total cost, which can be worked out in this form. We open the bracket, we say average revenue times quantity, close the bracket, minus, open the bracket, average cost times quantity, close the bracket. And then let's substitute. Our average revenues are equal to 100, that is 100, times quantity, which is 60, close the bracket, minus, our average cost is 45, times quantity, which is 60, we close the bracket. And then what did we get? For 100 times 60, we got 6,000. And then for 45 times 60, we get 2,700. And then that simply gives us the economic profit or supernormal profit or abnormal profit of 3,600, which is similar. So it's up to you as a learner. You can choose any formula that you use will give you the same amount of profit or a loss. So in this case, the firm is enjoying a supernormal profit. It might be the short run. And then the economic loss indicated again here. Now we are dealing with the economic loss. Remember, economic loss will prevail if AC is greater than AR or AR is less than AC. It can be also when TR, total revenue, is less than TC or when TC is more than TR. So these are the conditions that will prevail for the firm to make economic loss. So let's look at the graph. Marginal cost is coming in there with its labeling as MC. And then that is the point E in there. This point indicate where indicate the profit maximization point where marginal revenue equals to the marginal cost. There is the point indicated up there. And then that is our average cost. Then we have our AC there. Where does it turn? It simply turns above average revenues. Our revenues are slightly down there. They are equals to 90. But now with the cost turning up there, you can see our costs up there are equals to 150. That means now costs are more than revenues incurred in the business. AC exceed AR because AC is 150 and AR is 90. In this case, the firm is making economic loss. And then there is the shaded area, which indicate economic loss because average costs are more than the average revenues of doing the business. And then the graph is explained. The same graph comes in. You can see our AC is slightly above AR. AR is here, AC is above. And then AC is 150, AR is 90. That simply means costs are more than revenues or average costs are greater than average revenues. Then in this case, the firm is not making a profit. It's making economic loss because in simple terms, expenses are more than income earned by the business. Shaded area in there is indicating economic loss earned by the business. This point where MC equals to MR point E, they indicate equilibrium. We call this one the profit maximization point. And 75 is also known as the profit maximization output. And then let's see in the explanation. Economic loss is where total cost exceed total revenues. And then at point E, MR equals to MC. We can see this point, MR equals to MC. The firm maximizes its profit, therefore we call this point a profit maximization point. And then shaded area indicates economic loss. This area here is indicating economic loss because our AC is standing just above AR, or average cost exceed average revenues. Average cost exceed average revenues. AC equals to 150 and then AR equals to 90. You can see average costs are equals to 150 and average revenues are equals to 90, meaning income earned is 90, amount paid or expenses paid are equals to 150. Average cost curve 10, just 10 above average revenue. So it simply turns above. So AC is turning just above there it is. So this means that the firm is making economic loss because costs are more than revenues of doing the business. Revenues are down there at 90 and costs are just above at 150. The firm is then making economic profit. So how can we calculate economic loss? Loss can be equals to average revenues minus average cost times quantity. Let's see in substitution. How much is our average revenue? Our average revenue equals to 90. So our AR equals to 90. There is the value of AR, it's 90, minus average cost equals to 150, minus 150 times the quantity, which is 75. And then that will be giving us negative 4,500. The firm is making economic loss in this condition. Or the other formula we can use, we say economic loss equals to total revenue minus total cost. Then we need to work out total revenue and total cost in order to get the profit or a loss. We say, open the bracket, average revenue times quantity, close the bracket, minus, open the bracket, average cost times quantity, close the bracket. And then what do? We substitute then in this case. We say 90 as average revenue times 75, which is the quantity. And then minus, open the bracket, 150, which is our average cost, times 75, which is the quantity, close the bracket. And then what do we get? We got 6,750 minus 11,250. That is giving us negative 4,500 as economic loss for the firm. Therefore, the firm is indeed making economic loss. And then we continue monopolistic long-run equilibrium. Entry into the industry is fairly easy as there are no barriers to entry. So firms are free to enter the market while others are free to leave the market. And then if any other existing firms are making an economic profit, this will attract new competitors to enter the market or the industry. So if there is economic profit enjoyed within the market, new firms will always be attracted to enter the market and compete in the long run. This will increase the competition in the industry, and the new firm will take some of consumers for existing firms. As new firms enter the market, they don't come in with their consumers. They come into the market without any consumer, but they simply take existing consumers from these firms that are already within the market. Therefore, existing firms will be losing their consumers and their market share within the industry, which will lead to lower profits and normal profits made by firms in the long run because the competition is too high. If the competition is too high, consumers are free to buy from any supplier that is existing within the market. Therefore, firms find themselves making a normal profit in the long run. So this will decrease the demand for firms' products to make the demand curve more elastic. Because of the competition, the demand for goods will decrease from the existing firms. And then that will lead to demand curve becoming very much or relatively elastic because there is a high competition that is now existing since firms have entered the market. The long run average cost, LAC, turns on the average revenues, which is AR. If we talk about this long run equilibrium, the LAC will simply turn along or will turn on the average revenue curve. So, in the long run, the monopolistic firm will always make what we call the normal profit. That will be indicated in the graph. As we have said before, that the long run average cost will turn on average revenue curve, which is AR. This is our graph already in here. Then we'll simply bring MC as well as AC to determine if the firm is making a profit or a loss. There you see, this one is a long run equilibrium. Bear in mind, if it's a long run, we'll have LMC, meaning it's a long run marginal cost. LAC will be standing for long run average cost. Now, there is our long run average cost already in there. Now, let's look at the positioning. Where does the LAC turn? It simply turn straight or along or on the average revenue. This is the point where it turns. That simply indicates that the average cost are simply equals to the average revenues, because what we knew is that our revenues were equals to 250. So we waited to see how much is the value of our cost. So the long run average cost is also equals to 250, because the LAC long run average cost simply turns straight on the average revenue. So the firm in this case is making a normal profit. It is breaking even in this case. And then the point where LMC equals to MR is always known as what we call the profit maximization point. So in this case, the firm is making a normal profit. So this is the long run equilibrium for the firm under the monopolistic. So the graph is explained, and also the normal profit is calculated. Then our graph comes back. Remember, this is the very important point I always indicate. Our revenues are equal to 250. And then our costs are determined at the point where AC turns. So LAC is turning straight on the AR. So that simply means the firm is making a normal profit, because our AR is 250 and our AC is also 250, of which we call it the long run average cost. Remember, at the point where long run marginal cost intersect what we call marginal revenue, we have what we call the profit maximization point or equilibrium point. And then a graphical, let's see. Economic loss will be where? I mean, it's a normal profit, by the way. Normal profit will be where? Total cost equals to the total revenue. So in that case, the normal profit will be achieved. And then at point E, MR equals to MC. This is the point. Point E, marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. Then the firm maximizes its profit. The long run average costs are equals to average revenues. So LAC, you can see it turns here, is equals to 250 as much as AR equals to 250. So you can see LAC is 250, AR is 250. And then long run average cost turns on AR curve or average revenue. It simply turns here. So that simply means both AR and AC are equal. At the same time, both the TR and TC are equal. Let's see how the profit can be calculated. Normal profit equals to average revenues minus long run average cost times quantity, which will be 250, which is this one, minus 250 times the quantity, which is 60. We are getting 0. If we get 0, that means the firm is not making a profit, neither a loss. We call that a break even. So the other way around that we can use, we say normal profit equals to, since it's a normal profit, equals to total revenue minus total cost. Let's see. Let's break it out. AR times Q within the bracket minus, open the bracket, LAC times Q. Let's substitute. 250 times 60 within the bracket minus, open the bracket, 250 times 60. And then that will give us 15,000 minus 15,000, which will be 0. With this being said, the firm is making a normal profit in both of our calculations. So the firm is not making a profit, neither a loss. We call this one a normal profit. The firm is not making a profit, neither a loss, because our LAC is turning on AR as for this kind of the graph. So this graph indicates the long run equilibrium position for the firm under the monopolistic competition. Remember to use LMC, LAC, as I've indicated here, to show that we are doing the long run equilibrium. So now let's do the comparison of market structures. Since we are completing all of these markets, because this one is the fourth one, we compare market structures in a table form. So in this case, we have a firm which is the perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. So in the first point, we have number of firms. How many firms do we have under perfect market? We have many firms. And then how many firms do we have in the monopolistic? And then we also have many firms or large competitors. And then in oligopoly, we have few large firms. Under monopoly, there is one firm. And then how is the market entry under the perfect market? It's free. There are no barriers to entry. And then under the monopolistic, it's also free. Firms are free to enter the market. Under oligopoly, what happens here? Free but not easily varies from the free or varies from free to be restricted. Meaning in this case, firms are restricted from entering the market very easily. There are barriers to enter that exist to prohibit the entry of some businesses. Those barriers to enter, we explain, they can be natural or artificial. Also, in the monopoly is completely blocked. There is no entry of new businesses. There are high barriers to entry. Nature of products. Under perfect market, they are homogeneous or identical or similar. Under monopolistic, products are differentiated. Under oligopoly, product can be homogeneous or differentiated. And then under monopoly, product can be unique. They are not the same, and they don't have any perfect substitute. The demand curve for the perfect market is horizontal because the firm is the price taker. And then for the monopolistic, is relatively elastic but downward sloping. And then under oligopoly is downward sloping but kinked with two segments, namely the top one is relatively elastic, the bottom one is relatively inelastic. And then for the monopoly is downward sloping but relatively inelastic because the firm is the only supplier of the product without any competitor. Therefore, consumers are not very much sensitive to the change in price. And then we continue with the comparison. Market information. Under perfect market, there is a complete or perfect information for consumers and competitors. And then under monopolistic, it's incomplete. Under oligopoly, it's incomplete. And under monopoly, it's a complete information because firms do not have any incentive to hide information since that the firm is the only supplier of the product. Control over the price. Firms under perfect market do not have a control over the price. Under monopolistic, they do have a considerable control over the price. And then under oligopoly, substantial control, but not price setters, since there is a collusion in there that allow them to set their own prices. And then under monopoly, they have a complete control over the price. They are known as price setters. The profit and loss. In the short run, perfect market is making supernal profit or a loss. In the long run, it make a normal profit. And then the monopolistic does the same. In the short run, it can make a profit or a loss. In the long run, it will make the normal profit because of high competition. And then in the oligopoly, the profit is made in both short run and the long run. So economic profit is made in the long run. And then in the monopoly, both short run and long run, the firm will be enjoying a supernormal profit or economic profit or abnormal profit. Decision making. Under the monopoly, under the perfect market, decision has no influence on others. Firms are very much independent on their own decisions, influenced by other competitors slightly. They can be influenced by other competitors, but slightly. There is no collusion. Influenced by other competitors very much under monopolistic because they are very much interdependent. And then the monopoly firm is very much independent because it's the only supplier of the product. Examples, we talk about the fresh produce under perfect, restaurants under the monopolistic, and then petrol and oil under oligopoly, water and electricity supply, e.g. ESCOM under the monopoly. The collusion, perfect market, there is no collusion, and then also monopolistic, there is no collusion. It is slightly possible under what we call oligopoly. It is not relevant because the firm is the only supplier under the monopoly. Technical efficiency, it is achievable under the perfect market, very close to achieve. It is slightly possible under oligopoly, and it is possible under the monopoly. Allocative efficiency, it is achievable under the perfect market, very close to achieve under monopolistic because of competition, and then it is not achieved under the oligopoly as well as monopoly. It is not achieved. This was just the summary of the market structure. So compare and contrast market structures. So the question was the question is extracted from page 23 of the 2021 examination guideline. We have the structure here. The possible essay, 40 marks, and then contribute of 27% in the paper. This is the information of the market structure that can be compared. So in this case, we can compare either monopolistic to the monopoly, monopolistic to oligopoly, monopolistic to the perfect market. We can see number of businesses, the entry, control over the price information, examples, demand curve, economic profit or loss, decision-making, collusion, productive or technical efficiency, or allocative inefficiency. This is sourced from examination guideline. So this is the essay structure. Remember, when you write the essay, there is introduction. Under the body, we have a main part, as well as the additional part, and then we have a conclusion. Our introduction is 2 marks. That's why you define the concept. You don't provide any example in here. And then you don't take a part of the question statement and bring it in your introduction. And then in the body, that's where we discuss the content with some subheadings. This is the depth of the content. The first part, which is the main part, it is having 26 marks. And then this is where you discuss in details your theory. And then we have the additional part, which is out of 10 marks, which is the higher order question that you should answer. In this kind of the question, you don't list, but you discuss and you write in full sentences. And then the last part is the conclusion, where you conclude your essay. As you conclude your essay, you need to ensure that you bring the higher order response. It should not be the lower order, and you must not repeat any information that has been mentioned in the body of your essay or the introduction. So these are the principles that you can use to write the essay. Essay should be arranged in subheadings. You must ensure that you write subheadings when you write your essay so that you can be able to get those marks for lower order in your essay. Use point form rather than paragraphs when writing essays. Ensure that your sentences are written in point form, not in paragraph form. Remember the IMAX structure, which stands for I stand for introduction, M stand for main part, A stand for additional part, as well as C, which stands for conclusion. That is the IMAC that you must keep in your head to ensure that you attend to all of these aspects as you answer your essay. Remember, 8:18 principle, which simply indicate that in your essay, in the body of your essay or the main part, for listing subheadings, you will be having 8 marks, including examples. So subheadings and examples are having your 8 marks, and then if you go further, the main content or the content knowledge will be giving you 18 marks, where you discuss the content briefly and in details. The content knowledge and the depth discussion of the concept has the maximum of 18 marks in your essay. So whenever you write your essay, ensure that you have subheading provided, and also where possible you provide examples so that you can get those lower order marks, and then you go to the discussion. The depth of the essay will give you 18 marks. Be aware that listing on the additional part has the maximum of 2 marks. Do not list under additional part. You need to mainly do what? To discuss or write in full sentences in your responses. Ensure that the responses you provide are enough to score 10 marks. Do not provide less responses. Rather, provide extra responses. If ever each response is 2 marks, you can provide more than 5 answers in full sentences in order to acquire full marks in your additional part. Remember, it depends on your relevance. You must be relevant and be correct in order to acquire 2 marks. If your answer is not relevant, then you cannot score any mark. But if your answer is slightly relevant but not the full fact or not explained, that can worth a mark. Write in point form, like I've said before. Your conclusion should not have any repetition of either introduction, main part, or additional part. Your conclusion should be a critical or authentic response, whereby you look at the concept or you become more critical on it. Essay conclusion must be a higher order response. You don't have to provide the listing. You need to provide the higher order response as you provide your conclusion. That will give you the score of maximum of 2 marks. So this is the essay example. Compare perfect competition and monopolistic competition in detail under the following subheadings. Number of businesses was for 6 marks. The nature of product was for 8 marks. Entrance was for 6 marks. Control over the price was for 6 marks. That gave us 26 marks. Additional part, right positive impact. What positive impact will an increase in competition have on in South Africa? That was for 10 marks as additional part, and that gave us the sum of 40 marks. Then this is the introduction. This is how you can introduce your essay. Market is the mechanism that brings consumers and producers of goods and services together. It is the destination where buyers and sellers meet to exchange goods and services. This simply gives you 2 marks. Or this one can also give you 2 marks. The market structure is a framework of how the market is organized. This can give you 2 marks. So these are simple strategies or ways in which you can respond or provide your introduction as you are given this kind of the essay. Perfect market is the market structure that exists when there are many buyers and sellers with none of them having an influence over the price. In this case, remember, you were comparing both the perfect market and the monopolistic. And then you must also define monopolistic. Monopolistic competition exists where there are many sellers, many buyers and sellers with competition of some features from a perfect market and some from the monopoly. So there are some features or characteristics from both perfect and the monopoly. So this gives you 1. So you have the combination of definitions in there. Then you get your 2 marks for providing the proper introduction. And then we continue the main part or in the body of the essay. Number of sellers. So a large number of buyers and sellers operate under both structures. In both perfect and monopolistic, there are many sellers. Individual market participants under perfect market are insignificant in relation to the market as a whole to extend any influence on the market. But the monopolistic competitors exert some control over the market. So under the perfect market, firms do not have any control, but under the monopoly, they have that slight control over the market. An example of the perfect market is security exchange or the produce market. And then example of monopolistic talk to cleaning materials, cold drinks, toothpaste, soap, etc. So this one was only for 6 marks. We continue nature of products. An imperfect competition, all products sold in the market are homogeneous, while products in the monopolistic market are differentiated. So under perfect market, goods are identical or similar or homogeneous. Under monopolistic, they are differentiated. In the perfect competition, products are homogeneous, exactly the same regarding quality and appearance. It makes no difference to buyer where and from whom he or she buys the product, because these goods are similar. So there is no need to simply plan from whom I'm going to buy the product, because these goods are the same from all suppliers or competitors. Whereas goods produced by the business in the monopolistic competitive market are differentiated. Product can look the same, but they are not really the same. They are differentiated. Product may differ slightly in appearance, shape, size, and taste. Differences may be imaginary. For example, medicine may have a different brand names, but contain exactly the same basic ingredients. That makes the differentiated product under the monopolistic. The entry in the market. There is a complete freedom under the perfect market and the monopolistic. So firms are free to enter the market in both market structures. Entry is not subject to any restrictions in both of what you call a perfect market and monopolistic. There is no legal restriction, there is no financial restriction or technical restriction that is in place. There are no barriers such as licenses, permits, patents, and other restrictions in both perfect and the monopolistic competition that can prohibit the entry of new competitors into the market. Control over the price. And then what happens then? In the perfect market, there are many businesses, and the individual business owns a small portion in the industry. So they cannot control anything in the price. The price are determined by whom? By the market forces or the market within the industry. While in the monopolistic competition, an individual business has a certain control or influence over the price. So if you compare the two, perfect market does not have any influence over the price, while in the monopolistic firm can have a slight influence or control over the price. In perfect competition, the price is determined through market forces, demand and supply within the industry. Hence, the business can be regarded as a price taker. In the monopolistic competition, control over the price depends entirely on the strength of the brand loyalty. Hence, the business is regarded as a price setter. This gives you the maximum of 6 marks. And then the additional part. What positive impact will the increase in competition have on South Africa? That was for 10 marks. So this is information that was in this kind of the question paper. Improving competition as more firms will enter the market and produce those goods and services. So if ever there is more competition, there will be more firms available to produce the particular product or services. And then this will result to prices being lowered in the market because of the higher competition. And then improving quality of service provided. So if ever there's more competition, firms tend to provide good quality of goods because they have a greater incentive to be innovative and creative. Increasing production in the economy as a whole, where there will be more competition. If there is more competition, there are more firms coming in. That means output size within the market will be more, which will increase the supply of production in the market. And that will lead to more job creation or more opportunities created within the economy if there is more competition within the economy. And increasing competition results to increase in economic growth. So any other relevant response would be given 10 marks. And then the conclusion of the essay. It was as follows. The perfect market and monopolistic competition have a great impact on economic and social welfare because they both do not have a market end and exit restrictions. So market end and exit are not blocked, they are free. Markets are easily accessible, or there's a market accessibility which increases competition and expand economic opportunities for all participants in the economy. This is the example of conclusion that one would provide. So it gives, or it gets what you call 2 marks. Maximum consumer choice and wide range of choices. Consumers have a significant role on pushing prices lower within the market. Since there are more choices available for consumers, this simply pushes prices down for consumers. Then consumers can be able to afford goods and services because there's more competition, there's a large output size available within the market. And then another is say, compare monopolistic competition and oligopoly. So we are comparing monopolies again to the oligopoly. And then the focus is on the demand curve for 10 marks, the profit, nature of product, entry and exit. All in all was 26 marks. How does monopolistic competitor survive competition in the market? And then let's see the example. As for introduction, mainly we define both monopolistic competition as well as we provide the definition of the oligopoly. An oligopoly exists when small number of large companies are able to influence the supply of a product or a service to a market, while monopolistic competition is an imperfect market structure that exists when there are many sellers that produce similar slightly differentiated products. That is just for 2 marks. And then the main part of the essay. So it was to draw the demand curve and demand curves and compare them. Demand curve for the monopolistic is downward sloping, but relatively elastic. We can see it's downward sloping. The demand curve for monopolistic is more price elastic or flatter due to availability of close substitutes. Remember, these goods are having perfect substitutes. So this is the demand curve that was having only 2 marks. And then explanation or the theory was only having 4 marks. And then demand curve will continue. Demand curve for the oligopoly is keyed with 2 segments, namely, first one is relatively elastic, which is the top one, and the bottom one relatively inelastic. It is explained down there. And then we have the demand curve, which is keyed. We have the top segment, which is relatively elastic, and the bottom one, which is relatively inelastic. This is the keyed demand curve. The profit. In the short run, monopolistic competition make economic profit. And then in the long run, a monopolistic competition make only the normal profit. Remember, monopolistic firm can also make the normal profit in the economic loss in the short run, where we will be having our average cost being more than our average revenues. An oligopoly can make economic profit in the short run and in the long run. The nature of product produced. Remember, we said product produced under the oligopoly can be homogeneous or differentiated, but the ones for the monopolistic are differentiated. An oligopoly sell homogeneous or differentiated. A homogeneous product are sold by pure oligopoly, and differentiated are sold by what we call a differentiated oligopoly. And then entry and exit. Under the monopolistic, market entry is completely free to new entrants, while under the oligopoly, the market entry is slightly blocked. It's not free. There are some barriers to enter that exist. Entry into the exit in the monopolistic is easy. And then also we say new producers do not easily access oligopoly market. So under oligopoly, firms cannot easily access the market because some barriers to entry do exist to block the entry of new businesses. That was your main part. And then in the additional part, how does monopolistic competitors survive competition in the market? For 10 marks. And then these are the responses. A monopolistic competitor survive by using non-price competition through the following: offering differentiated products that makes it unique from those of competitors and less elastic. If ever products are differentiated, then that product will appear more unique to those of the competitor and it will be less elastic. And then competing based on non-price factors increase sales. So to increase sales, firms in there are using non-price competition strategies in order to compete. They don't mainly use the price. Using branding to indicate differences when competing with other suppliers in the market. So they use branding as one of the tools, which is the non-price competition strategy. We continue. A monopolistic competitor survive by using this aggressive advertising. Firms do advertise their product to give them the publicity into the society so that consumers will be persuaded to demand the product. So they tend to be attracted to buy the product. Extending shopping hours. Some of these businesses operate for 24 hours under the monopolistic. So that makes them to keep on getting these consumers and increase their sales. Providing free deliveries. So some of monopolies, especially we talk about fast food industry in here. Some can deliver at home. You order and then they deliver whatever you have placed an order on at home. That simply does what? That simply attract consumers and that simply increase sales for these businesses under the monopolistic. So providing free deliveries within a certain range of businesses, ensuring the edge over the competition. So any other relevant response was given the score of 2 marks if it was correct. And then this is the possible conclusion. Oligopolies can be involved in collusion and fix prices illegally, whereas collusion does not exist in monopolistic competition. So this is the end of our essay, and our lesson ends with this essay. I therefore thank you. I believe the lesson will have a greater impact as you keep on preparing for upcoming formal assessments. Thank you.